Every revolutionary technology was once called fake.
This machine will be the ruin of us all!
The sewing machine. Cinema. The internet.
You've got mail.
As I mentioned, I have no desire to be a part of the internet.
All right, I don't know how to work this.
And today, artificial intelligence.
We arrived at the
History
new wave
has seen this
category of
before.
commenters, the anti-AI hypocrites. People call them internet trolls. This is Michel Sarmento. First of all, thank you so much for the incredible support you've shown for my Comte de Saint-Germain series. I'm truly grateful to everyone who comes here because they genuinely enjoy history, historical fashion, and period films. But before we continue with episode 4, I'd like to talk about something much bigger than one comment section. I want to talk about a pattern that has repeated itself throughout history for centuries. When I started making historical films, I expected disagreement. That's perfectly normal. History evolves. New documents are discovered, interpretations change, and even historians disagree with one another. What I didn't expect was the level of absolute confidence coming from people who had clearly never done the research. History is complex, and disagreement is healthy. But it becomes deeply embarrassing when people who have clearly never opened a history book rush into the comments screaming, "Wrong," "False," "That never happened," without citing a single source. Psychology has a name for this kind of overconfidence: the Dunning-Kruger effect. In simple terms, people with very little knowledge about a subject often become the most confident because they don't yet recognize the limits of their own understanding. They watch one 2-minute TikTok, one YouTube short, or repeat something from their favorite history influencer, and suddenly walk into the comments acting like tenured professors. They don't ask questions. They don't compare sources. They don't check chronology. People call them internet trolls. And honestly, now I completely understand why. They're not interested in learning. They're interested in making noise. And then there are the purebred trolls, anonymous accounts with no visible face, no visible public activity, no sources, and no real argument. Just sarcasm thrown from the shadows. Creating takes courage. Hiding behind a ghost account to mock creators takes nothing. But here's the irony. Social media algorithms reward engagement, even when that engagement comes from negativity. Every sarcastic comment, every insult, every wrong written in capital letters still feeds the algorithm. They think they're tearing creators down. Many times, they're simply helping the work reach more people. History works differently. History doesn't reward noise. History rewards research. A loud comment is not a primary source. A comment with thousands of likes is not historical proof. Typing in capital letters doesn't magically make someone correct. It only makes misinformation louder. And the louder misinformation becomes, the more believable it appears. That's the real danger. The less they know, the louder they become. Now let me be very clear. I welcome criticism. Real criticism makes all of us better. If someone brings me a serious primary source, a historical document, or evidence that I genuinely overlooked, I'll read it. I'll compare it. And if I'm wrong, I'll happily correct it. That's how history advances. But unsupported certainty is something entirely different. People who react before they read, people who speak before they research, people who mistake confidence for knowledge. And once those comments collect enough likes, misinformation begins spreading faster than actual research. That's why I felt the need to make this video. Not because I'm offended, but because people come to my page to learn history. When they see many likes beneath an aggressively incorrect comment, they naturally assume the troll must be right. Now, before anyone misunderstands me, let me explain something. When I create a short historical film with AI-assisted tools, I am not pretending it is a university lecture or a museum reconstruction. I am creating short historical storytelling, a cinematic interpretation. AI is one of the tools I use to make that possible independently. It does not replace the research, writing, direction, editing, pacing, or artistic decisions behind the work. And like every historical film, it uses interpretation, especially when you're dealing with someone like the Comte de Saint-Germain, surrounded by mystery, conflicting accounts, myths, and legends. Or Louis XIV, whose image has been interpreted by artists, filmmakers, and historians for more than 3 centuries.
Take one of my first Louis XIV shorts, for example. Right there in the description, I clearly explained that it was a creative artistic interpretation, not a rigid 1-minute history lesson. To be honest, I never expected it to go viral, but apparently, many people never made it past the title. One self-proclaimed historian said my Louis XIV looked too much like Henry Cavill. The same person mocked the mustache because it wasn't thin enough, as if the entire history of Louis XIV depended on the thickness of facial hair. Really? So now Louis XIV rises or falls on the width of a mustache. Another person insisted he didn't look like a real Bourbon, as if every actor who has ever portrayed Louis XIV, or any French king, looked exactly like the historical monarch. George Blagden, Leonardo DiCaprio, Pierce Brosnan, none of them were perfect physical replicas. They were artistic interpretations. And that's exactly what cinema has always done. Then came another confident correction. Someone insisted a cardinal should never wear blue, only red. But Versailles wasn't that simple. Court dress depended on the occasion, rank, protocol, and etiquette, not a single color. History is complex. Internet certainty usually isn't. Then came my favorite part. I actually based Louis XIV's face partly on my own. So if you think he looks like Henry Cavill, I'll gladly take the compliment. And let's be honest, if tomorrow Hollywood announced Henry Cavill as the next Sun King, complete with a fake wig and mustache, many of those same critics would probably be first in line to buy a ticket. Look at Netflix's Versailles. George Blagden gave a fantastic performance. His hairstyle is far straighter and much less voluminous than Louis XIV's famous curls seen in contemporary portraits. Yet somehow, nobody complained, because they understood they were watching a dramatic interpretation, not a documentary. Then another woman criticized the makeup in my film for looking too modern. Really, today, Sofia Coppola's Marie-Antoinette is considered a modern classic. It's deliberately modern makeup, contemporary styling, pastel aesthetics, and even modern music became part of its artistic identity.
People understood it was cinema. Apparently, artistic license is acceptable when a major studio spends millions. But when an independent creator makes a 1-minute historical film, every curl, every brush of makeup, and every costume detail becomes a crime against history. Major studios constantly reinterpret history, mythology, and classic literature. They change timelines, appearances, costumes, accents, and sometimes even the race or gender of well-known characters. People are free to like or dislike those choices. That isn't my point. My point is consistency. Those choices are accepted as artistic interpretation. Yet when an independent creator does it, a mustache, a cardinal's robe, or a theatrical costume suddenly becomes a historical emergency. They attack a free 1-minute video as if it should be flawless, while paying $20 to watch a studio take greater liberties for 2 hours. Shouldn't it be the other way around? And honestly, if the real court of Versailles could watch today's historical films, I doubt their biggest concern would be a mustache, a cardinal's robe, or a theatrical costume. They would be far more horrified to discover that Louis XIV and his entire French court now speak English, with posh British accents. Imagine telling the Sun King that centuries later, every French duke, marquis, cardinal, and courtier would sound like they had just stepped out of Buckingham Palace. That would shock Versailles far more than my 1-minute artistic interpretation.
One looks at a king and says, I would give anything to be in his place. All he wants is his. But they see only the surface.
But it didn't stop there. Once I launched the Comte de Saint-Germain series, I started seeing the same pattern again, especially around historical fashion and 18th century court life. Not on every post, but often enough to reveal a pattern. Someone writes false with total confidence. Others click like, and suddenly casual viewers assume the publication must be wrong. That's why I wanted to make this video. Not to win arguments, but to protect historical research from loud online certainty. One self-proclaimed expert claimed Marie-Antoinette already had her permanent marble bathroom suite in 1776 and told me to check the official Versailles website. So I did. The chronology proved the opposite. My scene takes place in 1776. Her permanent marble bathroom was built in the early 1780s, so a portable copper bathtub was historically appropriate. Ironically, the source she linked to prove me wrong stated the room was built between 1782 and 1784. Instead of saying, "I missed the chronology," she replied, "I hope your ego is repaired," and reminded me she was a lecturer, an English teacher, and had visited the room. Well, madam, being a lecturer does not move the 1780s back to 1776. Visiting the room in 2026 does not teleport it into Marie Antoinette's apartment in 1776. Chronology matters. History without chronology isn't history, it's fantasy. Then came another expert, insisting across 3 comments that the Comte de Saint-Germain had ginger hair. Their source? A video game. Reality check? Games like Castlevania or Card Shark are artistic interpretations, not historical documents. If you read 18th century sources, Madame du Hausset, who personally met Saint-Germain at Versailles, described him as having black hair. Stop confusing video games with historical archives.
Then came the period fashion experts. A few people confidently claimed that 18th century men wore nothing beneath their culottes because the shirt was the underwear. And of course, those comments got likes. Maybe they watched one influencer doing an 18th century dressing video and decided, voila, history written in stone. But history is more complicated than that. Yes, a long linen shirt could function as an underlayer. Nobody disputes that. But that does not mean wealthy gentlemen never wore linen drawers. Expensive silk breeches, embroidered waistcoats, and court garments needed protection from sweat, body oils, and friction. That is exactly why Garceau documented caleçons as practical garments for gentlemen who could afford them. Then came the knee ribbons. Some people thought I had tied hair ribbons around the Comte's knees. No, those were cordons de culotte, functional ties used to fasten breeches below the knee. Newsflash, they didn't have elastic. Clothing stayed in place with ties, buttons, buckles, garters, and ribbons. Then people complained about the cape. Really? The Comte is traveling to Versailles to meet the king and queen. If appearing before the royal court is not formal, what exactly is? And then someone criticized the wig because I didn't spend the entire minute showing the full 18th century toupee process. Pomatum, powder, false hair, curling, ribbons, styling, everything. Think about that. Not even major historical films show every step of dressing every time. Cinema compresses time. A museum demonstrates the process. A film tells the story. Let me clear up another misconception. Many people think AI filmmaking is just typing one sentence and pressing a button. It isn't. Creating one beautiful image can be the easy part. The real challenge is continuity, keeping the same face, hairstyle, costume, room, lighting, and historical details across multiple scenes. Sometimes one shot can take hours before everything finally matches. Only people who actually work with AI filmmaking understand how much patience, persistence, and artistic direction that requires.
And finally, we arrived the new wave category of commenters, the anti-AI hypocrites. One woman came into my comments and simply wrote, "Stop with the AI bullshit." So I became curious. I visited her public page. She presents herself as a classical artist who organizes 18th century balls. Fair enough. But then I noticed something interesting. She also calls herself a digital creator. She promotes her events through social media. She sends digital invitations through WhatsApp and email. She records everything on a smartphone. She uses modern speakers. And her authentic costumes? Machine stitched, made with synthetic fabrics, finished with plastic wigs. Apparently, digital technology is perfectly acceptable when it promotes her own work. But when someone else uses a different digital tool to create art, technology suddenly becomes the enemy. Then it happened again. I created a short film promoting sustainable fashion and recycling. The message was about reducing waste and encouraging people to rethink consumption. Someone became angry, not because they disagreed with sustainability, but because I used AI to talk about it. Think about that for a second. They were more offended by the tool than interested in the message. And that's when I realized something. This isn't really about AI. It's about history repeating itself.
And here's another irony. Artificial intelligence didn't suddenly appear overnight. Long before it became available to independent creators, Hollywood had already been using AI-assisted technologies behind the scenes. Digital doubles, face replacement, de-aging, voice enhancement, machine learning, advanced CGI. Most audiences never noticed because those tools were hidden behind the budgets of major studios. But now that similar technology is becoming accessible to independent filmmakers, some people suddenly dismiss the work as fake. The technology didn't suddenly become fake. It simply stopped being exclusive.
This machine will be the ruin of us all!
Look at the sewing machine. When it was introduced in the 19th century, many traditional tailors attacked it. They said it would destroy craftsmanship, destroy real artisans, destroy authentic clothing forever. Sound familiar? Today, many of those same traditional costume makers proudly use sewing machines every day. Machine stitching became part of the tradition. The technology changed. The criticism disappeared. The exact same thing happened with cinema. When motion pictures were invented, many theater critics dismissed them. They insisted cinema wasn't real art, that cameras would destroy authentic acting, that no serious artist would ever use such a mechanical invention. Today, cinema is one of the greatest art forms in the world.
You've got mail.
Then came the internet and email.
Yes, violence at NBC, GE.com. I mean,
Well, Allison should know. What do you
is
say to that,
internet
Allison?
anyway?
Internet is that
Massive computer network.
the one that's becoming really big now.
What do you mean? That's big. Wait, how does one? What do you write to it like mail?
No, a lot of people use it and communicate. I guess they can communicate with NBC writers and producers. Allison, can you explain what internet is?
No, she can't say anything in 10 seconds or less.
I'm afraid that if I subscribed to something like internet,
You would really be hooked.
I would get hooked and I would never, spend time with my family. I just, as I mentioned, I have no desire to be a part of the internet because I feel like I'm so inundated with information all the time that I don't want more. Don't you ever feel like it's just constant bombardment
I don't know. I guess the thing I'd resent
information?
most is I would resent that, at least when you're home, if the phone rings, you have the option of not answering it. On the internet, people can send you messages all the time people you don't even want to hear from.
People insisted it would destroy human communication. Later came smartphones. People said they would ruin conversation forever.
Somebody call him? Well, give me a phone. Somebody give me a phone. Oh. All right, I don't know how to work this.
Here, sweetie.
Now, many of those same people organize their lives through smartphones, email, messaging apps, and social media. And that's what bothers me most. People demonize a technology they don't yet understand. They mock the people who adopt it first. Then, once it becomes normal, they quietly jump on the bandwagon. They use it, they depend on it, and they pretend they were never against it. That isn't wisdom, it's technological hypocrisy. The tool changes, the century changes, the names change, but the behavior never does. Now let me make one thing very clear. This video is not about asking anyone to agree with me. Quite the opposite. Don't believe me simply because I made this video. And don't believe a loud comment simply because someone typed false in capital letters. Question. Look at multiple sources. Check the chronology. Understand the context. Then make up your own mind. That's how history is supposed to work. The internet rewards confidence. History rewards research. The inventions change, the century changes, the people change. But ignorance always reads from the same script. So next time you want to criticize a new technology, learn how it works first. And next time you want to criticize history, bring a source. Because history isn't built on noise, it's built on evidence. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoy thoughtful discussions about history, historical fashion, and filmmaking, I'd love to have you here. And until next time, stay tuned for the Comte de Saint-Germain, Episode 4.